It's Song Talk Radio.
Welcome to Song Talk Radio. This is the show with songwriters talking to other songwriters about the craft of, you guessed it, songwriting. We share tips, tools, and techniques, and together we all become better at writing songs. I'm your host, Neil Modi, and with me, my co-host, Phil Emery. How are you, Phil? How are you, Phil?
I'm doing... What was that?
I was about to call you by your other last name. I don't want to go
there. Well, I'm not sure, but I think I'm okay. But
yeah.
In beautiful St. John's, Newfoundland.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. It was a beautiful day here in Toronto too. So we're all having a good day. Please send your comments and questions and how your day was to Song Talk Radio on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or feedback at songtalk.ca, and we'll share your thoughts on the show. Maybe not if you just tell us what kind of day you had. We won't share that necessarily.
We might.
And please, what's that?
We might.
We might. It was really interesting. And please visit songtalk.ca to see the show post for this episode, to find links to things we mentioned, and to download lyric and chord sheets to follow along with the songs that we feature. And before we get to tonight's guest, we just want to make an announcement. Even though we've just finished a few weeks ago our Songwriting Challenge 2022, we are already starting our plans for Songwriting Challenge 2023. And we are going to officially drop the challenge a few months from now, but we thought we'd just give everyone a small heads up about what we're thinking. And the idea we came up with for this year's challenge is to write a song in a different mode. And
that
if you don't know,
write in.
That you don't write in, or not major or minor, and we're going to get more into this as the months go on. For now, just talking a little bit at the top of each show, maybe about what a mode is, if you don't know what it is. Of course, you could always search modes on songtalk.ca, and we do have an episode where we discussed it a few years ago. And as part of the challenge, we will do another episode specifically where we talk about the theory behind modes and what it all means, and all that goody stuff with some example songs and whatnot and all that good stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be a great way of expanding your songwriting world, because it's so easy to fall back on old habits, on old approaches, and this is a good way to force yourself into finding some new melodies. And I think that can be a really, really good exercise.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to this one particularly. It's going to be lots of fun. Okay.
And I think we'll have another show on modes as well.
Yeah, for sure. We'll be talking about a lot, and we'll dedicate an episode at some point in the new year to talking about modes and some example songs, and see what it all means and how it all works and how it can help you as a songwriter.
Indeed.
Okay. Tonight, we are very happy to have country artist Jerry Sereda with us. Here's a taste of his song, Backroad Therapy.
I'm like a kettle on a stove, something's gonna blow, life's cranking up the heat. I'm getting crushed by the weight of a million different things, all pushing down on me. Gonna crank that Chevy key, yeah, I got a bus free. Give me some cornfields on my left, you singing on my right. Whole lot of carefree up ahead, and all our worries far behind. Big old blue sky up above.
Canadian musician Jerry Sereda is a decorated country artist who can't help but capture music fans everywhere he goes. With his gripping and energetic live performances, Jerry celebrates his Indigenous heritage by weaving personal stories and experiences into his delightfully catchy songs. Beginning his music career as the winner of a local music contest, who earned the opportunity to record his first single, the 2010 Indigenous Music Awards Best New Artist has firmly established his roots in the Canadian country music scene. Drawing comparisons to the vocal and live performance style of country legends Garth Brooks and Tim McGraw, Jerry has shared the stage with prominent country artists, including four-time JUNO Award winner Johnny Reid and Canadian Country Music Association Award recipient Jason Blaine. Welcome to Song Talk Radio, Jason Sereda. Jerry Sereda.
I was going to say it's Jerry, but it's a pleasure to be here. You can call me.
It's great to have you on the show.
As long as you don't call me late for supper. Is that what they say, right?
That's true.
I just wanted to ask you. I was curious about how you have Indigenous heritage as well as being a country artist. How do you bring that intersection together in your songwriting?
It's about really looking at kind of some of the issues that are going on in Indigenous with Indigenous peoples across Canada, and really looking at very lightly bringing some of those issues into some of the songs that we write, as well as, music in itself is, it's always been a healing tool for Indigenous peoples. And that's first and foremost what I think of it as when we're putting a song together. I think of the way it's going to impact people and the way it's going to be able to help people through the good times, the bad times. And I mean, that's country music in a nutshell. I think I've just basically explained every country song.
Yeah.
It's raw human emotion, and it's really bringing that out and sharing that with people and letting them know that they're not alone in their struggles and in their triumphs and in their, successes, celebrations, and downfalls. It's all part and parcel of the human condition. And I just like to bring as much of that as I can. And it's oftentimes I'll bring a pretty raw story, and then working with the rest of my team, my producer, and some of the people that we write songs with, they help me finesse it into something that's a little bit more universal and not just my story.
So let's talk about the actual process, the songwriting process. Is it do you start off with like some melody ideas or lyric ideas and then develop it on guitars, or?
It's a little bit of both. I think when I first started out in the industry, I knew how to play some guitar chords. I loved singing. I loved going to karaoke, and I loved talking to people about emotion, but I wasn't really into the songwriting mode yet. And, the first couple songs I wrote really didn't, I'm not going to say that they didn't fit in a regular musical structure, because I think it's all been done. But I think what I was doing at the time was a little different than what you would expect to hear in a country song, in terms of, I'd have the verses in one key, and then when I switched to the choruses, they'd be in a completely different key. Oh, no. And I switched back and forth, and I was like, hey, it worked out at the time. So I managed to write a few songs that I really enjoyed. And I think that whole first album that I put out was really just me exploring that idea of writing songs and putting stuff down and figuring out what really worked for me and what didn't work for me. And through the process of that, there were some songs where I kind of had a melody. I'm like, I kind of like that. And then other times I just had, I had a few words, kind of a hook, I suppose, that I wanted to write something around, an idea, central idea. And then other times I just had a story I wanted to tell. And I really just started messing around a little bit on the guitar and started playing around with some words and just kind of seeing what came to life as I went along. And in that process, it eventually, it formed itself into a song. And then when it was done, or when I thought it was done, I generally sit with it for a bit and see if I was happy with that idea. And a lot of times those initial songs got changed thematically quite a bit, but I think the structure remained very consistent. That's how I started anyway. So sometimes it is that melodies, other times it's a central hook or an idea. And a lot of times it's really just a story that I have in my head, and I just need to figure out the way it's going to come out. And it's a little bit of a lyric, and it's a little bit of a chord. And then it just kind of, it's like grabbing a bunch of Play-Doh and just starting to build something. You don't quite know what you want, but you have an idea. And as it takes shape, it generates more ideas. And I just kind of go with it sometimes.
Yeah, how do you decide when a song is done?
When my producer tells me. No, I'm just kidding.
That's not a bad idea, to be honest.
That's true.
It's a song is done when I can sit with it for a while, and when I finish a song, I like to take some time and step away from it for a bit, and then come back to it and revisit it with, you know, a different set of eyes, a different lens, maybe a different emotional state at the time, and just see if I'm still really happy with the words that I chose, with the melody that I chose. Is it as impactful as it can be? Is it relaying the message that I wanted it to relay, or has the message now changed? And is there something different I see in it? And oftentimes when we get closer to, and that's the other side of it, is sometimes when I think a song is done and we'll sit down, we're planning to do a release, I'll sit down with my producer and we'll talk about songs that I think I would like to have on the album, and he'll listen to them, some of them, and he'll tell me what he thinks should be on the album, and we'll kind of explain our choices, why it is we feel this one should be or that one shouldn't be. And then once we kind of narrow it down and we've either convinced each other that we've made right choices, I think then we say, okay, now let's really dive into these songs and take a look at them. Let's figure out tempos. Let's figure out, is the key proper? Is it going to deliver the right message? Is the tempo proper? Is it going to have the right emotional feel to it? And then we really pick apart the words and say, well, you know, I feel that this could be stronger. I feel that this could be stronger. And especially when it comes to the words, actually, I often find that some of the most impactful changes will actually happen when we've decided on the song, we've decided on the tempo, we've decided on the key, and we've laid down some bed tracks. And I actually stand up in front of that microphone and start to sing it, and, you know, not really think too technical about it, but to give it that emotional performance that I want. And sometimes words will just come out. And they become the new words. And, you know, I'll be like, why did I say that? And, you know, we'll talk about it maybe for a second or two. And more often than not, it'll be, wow, you know, that's really the word that probably should have been there. It flowed well. It came out naturally. It wasn't thought about. It wasn't planned. And sometimes that's, I think, what's so great about writing a song is it's really just that raw moment, that moment in time, what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and it just kind of flows out of you. And when you have the music behind it, when it's just more than me and a guitar, it gives a different dynamic. Mm-hmm. So I often like to hear a lot of instrumentation before I put those vocals down. I know we add some after instrumentation to kind of give it a little bit of extra flair, or to make that moment really pop. But it's when I have all of that instrumentation that the emotion, the songs, the words to describe it might change. And sometimes it's just that one single lyric that comes out at the time, and it's like, wow, why didn't we think about that when we were writing it? Because that's absolutely perfect. That's exactly what should be there.
Does it only happen like that when you get in front of the microphone, you hear the arrangement, the bass and drums and everything? And then
No.
Or do you actually explicitly sit down with your producer and say, okay, let's give the lyrics one more pass through and see if everything hits emotionally the way you want it to hit?
We absolutely do sit down and we go through the lyrics before we get the songs out there. But I think it's just when you're caught up in that moment, because you like, the funny thing about being in a vocal booth, and I'm sure anybody listening who's written songs knows kind of the story. You know, you've just finished singing the song maybe 10, 20, 30 times, and it's like, it gets repetitious, but I mean, you really get into the song then, right? You really start to feel it, you really start to live it, and you're no longer thinking about the technical aspects of the performance. It's all muscle memory now, and it's dialed in, and you're trying to give it that really solid stage performance, that really solid lyrical performance, and to get that emotion out there properly. And all of a sudden, you know, something just comes out, that the passion in you just throws something new into the mix, and it's like, wow, that's really cool. I kind of like that. You know, it's that improvisation when you're on stage, and I feel that's a lot of where that comes from too, because before I was a songwriter, I was a performer. I was used to singing in front of people, not my stuff, a lot of cover stuff, but you know, I often found back then that's when, you know, I might change a lyric or two to suit the audience that I was in front of, to better fit the feel. But you also come up with different delivery methods too. And, you know, whereas I might have always been doing something, all of a sudden I might really shoot for an octave higher, and it just comes out, right? It's the moment's right. It feels right. You're passionate. You've built it up, and you make that delivery, and it's like, wow, I kind of like that. Like that was in me the whole time. But, you know, I was trying to keep this simple and not too technical. And I really wasn't thinking about the versatility of what you can do with the song structure that's there. So
you feel that when you finish recording a song and stamp it on a CD and send it out and people start hearing it on the recording, that then it's stamped and it's done? Or do you actually change things lyrically or melodically or something like that in, like, when you perform it live, you know, 2 years later or something like that?
I sometimes throw in a few changes or tidbits, and with the performance when I'm on stage, sometimes it, again, depending on what you've done before and what's coming up after and the way the audience is responding, you give them a little something extra, and I think that just comes naturally. And what I always tell people, like when you're reading the bio, to me, as much as I love the songwriting, the live performance for me is really where it's at, because that's where you get to take that song and give people an experience that they cannot get from a CD. And to make that experience memorable is really everything. It shows your personality coming through the mix. So, you know, I think country fans expect to hear the song kind of the way it's written, but at the same time, every now and then something different comes out, you know, something different comes out, and it's like, wow, that was pretty cool. And I've seen it with my own heroes on stage. You know, I've watched a lot of country musicians come and do the songs that they've been singing for 20 years, and they do it just a little differently. But that becomes that moment that you share with them right then and there. So
it can be a surprise, but as long as it fits with the song and fits with the performance and the vibe, then it's all good, right? Absolutely.
And, you know, that's what it is it's just, I kind of let, when I'm up there performing it, I stick to the basics, but I let passion and intuition kind of guide me. And sometimes it just feels right to, you know, give a note an extra push, or, you know, do something a little different, a little up and down, to keep some movement going in the song. And I know as a listener, when I've heard my heroes do that on stage, I'm like, wow, that was really cool. Yeah. So if I can work something like that in, you know, there's actually been times when I've gotten off the stage and like, damn, I really like the way I sang that song. What did I do? Can somebody explain to me what I did so I can recreate that again? Because it just came out.
Record everything. I wanted to ask you about key changes. You were saying that initially you were doing, you know, you do like a verse in a one key and then, you know, change keys. Is that something that you don't do as much anymore because of the country music sort of genre? Or is that...
You know, it's hard to say. I think it's because I understand, I have a better understanding of music theory now, and I understand how a lot of the top hits were written. And I think I know I didn't know what I was doing back in the day, so I just kind of explored. And I don't think that will never happen again. I actually think I should try to do more of that exploration. I feel now when it comes to exploration of melody and stuff like that, rather than me picking up a guitar and trying to like get something going in a key that I might not normally use, you know, technology is here to work in our favor now. So it's just as easy for me to, you know, bring up bring up Logic Pro and start running through some samples and listening to what's there. And you're like, yeah, that's kind of cool, and pop it in and see if you can get a groove going with that. And that kind of changes that songwriting thing right there on the spot too. Mm-hmm. So it's,
have you tried that, going into a studio where you actually don't have any songs and actually write like the whole album actually in the studio?
I didn't do it in the studio, but here's what we did do. When I started working with my current producer, I had some songs, and I had some songs that were pitched to me as well, but I really wanted to do the writing. So he suggested, he's like, you know what? Why don't we get together once a week? He's like, he was in Calgary, I was in Edmonton at the time, and he just said, we'll bring up a Zoom or a FaceTime or a Google Meet, and we'll start writing songs once a week. We'll make it a regular thing. So I was like, okay, that sounds like a great idea. Well, it took us about a month and maybe a little bit more to finish one song, and we're realizing this really isn't going as quick as we wished it would. So I'd like to say he pulled a Nashville on me, because what he did is he said, okay, Jerry, here's what we're going to do. I have called up a bunch of my songwriting buddies. He said, I want you to come down to Calgary for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. He's like, and we're going to write with somebody in the morning, write with somebody different in the afternoon, and we're going to do that for 3 days. And said, okay, well, let's see how this goes. So that's exactly what we did. And at the end of 3 days, I had 6 songs. It worked out great. And then we said, let's do it again. And he invited some more of his songwriting friends, and he invited some more singer-songwriters as well, performers. And we actually, I think at one point in time, had 3 rooms going. So we had one room, I think the top floor was, I don't think it had a name, but I guess you could call it the Zoom room, because that's where we were writing with people from Nashville, and we were just zooming them in. And somebody else was writing on the main floor of the house. And then another group was writing in the basement. And we wrote from right after breakfast until lunchtime. And then we all came up, we ate lunch all together, and then we just changed.
You just changed up the groups?
Changed up the groups and just kept going and we did that again for 3 days. So we think we did this about 3 or 4 times. And by the time this was done, I was sitting with 20 brand new songs that we could now comb through to, look at the old catalog, look at the new catalog, and kind of see what we could do then. And then when I came back to Winnipeg, we really kept that up. Like we haven't done the 3 days consecutive since I was out in Alberta, but we were doing, again, just a weekly setup writing session. I forget what it was. I think it was Wednesday afternoons, every Wednesday afternoon. It would be myself, it would be my producer, Troy, and we connected with a publishing company down in Nashville who had heard some of our stuff on Sirius XM radio and was kind of loving the vibe. So, they were pitching us some stuff, and we did record one of their songs, but then we said, hey, we'd love to write with some of your guys. We think that you got some really good stuff. Would that be something you think they would do? He's like, absolutely. So we started doing that weekly. We did it again for, I think, 9 weeks straight. And every week we wrote with, it was myself, it was Troy, and somebody different. So we ended up again.
When you get together with these other songwriters, especially the big house group thing, was everyone in the same boat, as in we are writing songs for Jerry to sing and for his album, or were we just getting together to write songs?
Well, no, the goal was the first time I did it, the first time I told you about, it was specifically for me. But then the second and third, and I think fourth time, there was myself and there was a few other country singers from Alberta. And, we were each, the goal was to write songs for ourselves. Like I was writing for me, and anybody who was writing with me was writing for me. But the other singer-songwriters were writing for themselves as they progressed up or down the levels of the house. So
I'm only asking because like the guest we had last week on the show, her name is Angela Steen. She's a singer-songwriter from Toronto here. Yeah. And she said that when she went to Nashville and she spent some time there in the songwriting groups and things like that, she found that she got good songs out of them, but they weren't Angela enough. They weren't really her songs. They kind of got, I don't want to say watered down, but, you know, they became, you know, a thing that they would hand off to some performer in Nashville, and that would be it. And it was kind of, you know, that sort of thing, which she wanted to you know, keep a certain amount of, I won't say control necessarily, but, you know, but the personality of the songs, it wasn't enough for her.
I got you. Yeah. I know what she's talking about, because Nashville can kind of be that way. And, you know, what I did appreciate the times that I went down to Nashville, it was very, well, at least the people I wrote with, maybe I just lucked out. But I have heard stories like you just mentioned. But I think one of the biggest things that I really found about Nashville was when I was down there writing with people, you know, I'd walk into a room and I don't know these guys. I know of them. I mean, I've heard hundreds of their songs on across mainstream country radio, but I didn't know them. So what they did is, you know, they just kind of sat down, and I found they were all very personable, and they would just start talking to me like, hey man, you know, what's going on? Like, where are you from in Canada? And, you know, what kind of things do you do? Like, what'd you grow up doing? And, you know, we just had a conversation, and then it would kind of get around to, well, do you have any songs started? Is there something you're really looking at writing? And we'd start the conversation there. And again, maybe I just lucked out and I found the right people to kind of, it was kind of like a therapy session, you know. They're sitting there and they're learning about you, and they're like, how can I help you? What is it you're missing? What would you like to create today? And what is it about you that we can make this song exceptional based on your life experience, your skill set, the things that are important to you, the people that are important to you. So I kind of found that cool. There was one time in particular where we were down in the US, and I went down there with another Canadian singer-songwriter, and the goal again was to write songs for me. And we started writing something that was kind of my idea, but then I would say it kind of veered off track. And all of a sudden, it was more of a song for this other singer-songwriter than it was for me. And he's like, we gotta get back on track here. He's like, we're here writing songs for you. And I was like, no. I like where this is going. It's not specifically my story, but elements of it I have lived and I have experienced, and it's, you know, for me, it was kind of sort of awesome to see somebody else really dive into the song. Whereas I'm used to doing that diving in and everybody's surrounding me to support me. For once, I got to be that person in the room, helping this guy who, like, he's one of the guys I really look up to here in Canada, right? As a singer and as a performer and a songwriter. So I was like, this is kind of cool. And I'm not sure if he's ever done anything with the song, but it was a great experience just to have that other side of the coin, right? To see it from somebody else's lens. And like, I spent years and years and years as a high school teacher, and I realized how important that is to be able to see that from different lenses, right? To have an experience from different lenses, and how that, I think, also made me better able to explain what it is that I'm looking for when it comes to a song, and be able to stand up for changes that I don't want to be made to certain songs. Because I've had some people say, you know, if we change this, it would make it a little bit more sophisticated. And I remember one point in particular where I stood my ground and I said, no, what I love about the song is it's simplistic. You know, when I'm trying to tell somebody I love you, I don't need to say, when I see you, roses fall from the sky and lightning crashes and waves are pounding. I just need to say, you're beautiful. You have an amazing soul. I love you. That's all I need to say. I don't need to go into all this descriptive. And I fought for that one. And I said, I like it because it's simple, and I can get behind simplicity for this idea. Doesn't need to be overcomplicated.
That's such a hard line to know where to draw, where to be open to changes and then where to sort of say, no, that's gone, that's not who I am. And it's hard to know where to draw that line, I think, because it's a tough one, because the simple things are sometimes hard to say. Because it is so simple, but
it is, yes.
Well, that's why I was asking about goals when you're talking about this collaboration thing, because I think that's I've never done that myself. I've never gone to Nashville and done that, but like it seems to me that's incredibly important to go into one of these sessions and be clear, and everyone in the room be clear about what are we here to do. Are we here to write a song for Jerry? Are we here to write a song for somebody else? Are we here to write a sophisticated song? Or are we here to write whatever? Like what are we doing here?
And I think I just let the process. I think we always had a goal in mind, but it really came down to, at least every time I've written a song with this group of people, it starts off with just that conversation. Like, is there anything you've been working on? Is there any ideas you have? And I have probably a 30-page document that's just like those hook ideas, those just maybe a few lines. And, I'll just start running through some of those. But I've also had other people say, I've started this. What do you think of this? And they might have a melody or they might have a line. And, a lot of times they've said, it's kind of cool, but, then we just move on to something else. just gently brush it off and say, nah.
Let's actually talk about backroad therapy, because you've got 3 writers on this song: yourself, Troy Kokol, and Andrew Scott Wills. Can you talk a little bit about what the collaboration was between the 3 of you?
Sure. Yeah. We sat down, and this was one of those ones that I had just talked about, where we connected with Green Hills Music down in Nashville, and this was one of their writers that they set us up with for collaboration. And first time, obviously, meeting him virtually. Troy's in Calgary, I was in Winnipeg, and Andrew was down in Nashville, and or maybe he wasn't there at the time. I'm not really sure where he was, but he we started talking about different ideas and what's going on. And I think he showed us a few things he was working on. And Troy mentioned a few things he was working on and played us something that he had from his back catalog. And I was kind of distracted, I think, at the time. And Troy picked up on it right away. I think Andrew did too. And they're like, is everything okay? I was like, no. I was like, I just had a terrible day, and like, I'm frustrated, I'm angry, and they're like, oh, geez, man, like, do you want to maybe postpone this for another day? And I was like, no. I said, I carved this time aside. I said, and let's be honest, I said, I can put this down, I can put this aside. I said, besides, writing a song takes my mind off what's bugging me. And I said, it's very therapeutic for me. It's my own therapy. And I said, actually, I had this idea, and I just opened up my phone. I had only written it down a couple days prior, and I had written down backroad therapy. And they're like, what does that mean? I said, well, for me, backroad therapy, I said, is when I was growing up, when we were having tough times, or when we just needed to get away, grab some friends, or grab your partner and hop in a vehicle and just take a drive. We used to drive, grew up in a small rural town. So we were only a hop, skip, and a jump away from a back road, a gravel road. And we could drive down that road. We could go park in somebody's field and, whatever, shoot pop bottles off of hay bales, or, go drive down a road to the lake, jump in the lake, go for a swim, go play in the creek, go fishing. There's so many things we could do, but it was always outdoors, and it was always outside, and it was away from the hustle and bustle of people trying to get stuff accomplished. We wanted to do the exact opposite. And that was so many great memories and so therapeutic. So they're like, that's pretty cool. Like, they're like, well, what about your day? Like, how, why were you upset? So I told him why I was upset. And, I remember saying to him, I was like, and by the time it was all done, I said, I felt like I felt just like a kettle on a stove, like I was about ready to blow up. And they're like, that might be the first line. I was like, there you go. I was like a kettle on a stove, something's going to blow. And I said, life's cranking up the heat. They're like, I think we got something. So we just kind of rolled with it. And I think it wrote itself after that. Like, so by the time I was done, I could care less about what was bugging me. It was gone, right? Singing and having fun and writing a song and really thinking about all those good times growing up. And even during the pandemic, I mean, it wasn't uncommon for me to say, well, that's it. I've had enough. At the end of the day, slam the laptop shut and just hop in the vehicle. Even in the middle of the day, just slam the laptop shut, hop in the vehicle and just take a drive to the beach, go sit on the beach, take in some sun, throw a tube in the lake and just float around for a while. I was like, that's therapy. So,
yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that was that song.
Cool. Very good.
All right, should we take a listen?
Yeah, let's take a listen to it and we talk about it some more.
All right, here we go.
I'm like a kettle on a stove, something's gonna blow, life's cranking up the heat. I'm getting crushed by the weight of a million different things, all pushing down on me. Gonna crank that Chevy key, yeah, I got a buzz free. Give me some cornfields on my left, you singing on my right. Whole lot of carefree up ahead, and all our worries far behind. Big old blue sky up above, some red dirt underneath. Cruising with your girl in a small town world, getting some back road therapy. Take me back in time, just you and I. Wheels were always rolling, nothing we were chasing, no destination, living in the moment. Gotta get back there now, and this old truck knows how. Give me some cornfields on my left, you singing on my right. Whole lot of carefree up ahead, and all our worries far behind. Big old blue sky up above, some red dirt underneath. Cruising with your girl in a small town world, getting some back road therapy. We're just a couple miles away from breaking those chains. Give me some cornfields, blue skies, red dirt, and sunshine. Oh, give me some cornfields on my left, you singing on my right. Whole lot of carefree up ahead, and all our worries far behind. Big old blue sky up above, some red dirt underneath. Cruising with your girl in a small town world. Yeah, cruising with your girl in a small town world, getting some back road therapy. Getting some back road therapy.
Great stuff.
Very cool.
There you go. 2 minutes and 34 seconds of back road therapy.
It's really short.
I wanted to talk about that. That is a short song. Now, is that
on purpose?
was that on purpose, or did you feel that was sort of the key of the idea, or is it trying to fit into a format, or?
I think it was a little bit longer when we wrote it. I think we cut out the intro. Like there was a little bit more of an intro riff, like a couple passes of something, and then I think we had the discussion. The bridge might have been a little bit longer. I'm trying to remember now. But I just feel that we had a discussion as Troy was putting it together, and we said we listened to it with the intro, and we listened to it with, maybe there was a little bit more of a solo, and we just said, is it really adding to it? And it really wasn't. It was just a filler, for the sake of filling. Mm-hmm. And we do happen, we have heard. I can't speak for every radio or music producer in Canada or the world, but sometimes if you need a song and you're coming up to the top of that hour and people want to hear the news and weather, sometimes you got less than 3 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think I remember somebody telling me that I forget which Canadian band it was that did just that. Like they made a super short little song and they got tons of play just because it was able to play right at the top of the hour. And that's what better time slot to get than right at the top of the hour when everybody's tuning in to listen, right?
I always think back to CCR. Those songs were so catchy and so good, and they were all like under 3 minutes.
Yeah, and like a lot of Johnny Cash's catalog too, right? I mean, there's a country rock guy that just they don't need to be long.
I'll absolutely admit, when that bridge hit and the bridge ended and there was this guitar going, it was a rising up guitar thing. I'm like, here comes a guitar solo. Nope, we're right back in.
Right back in. Right back in. Yeah,
I totally expected a guitar solo there.
Yeah.
But I want to point out to our listeners, definitely visit the website and look at Jerry's lyric sheet, because this thing is the way you're supposed to do a lyric sheet. There's credits on there. There's the maple thing. Can you explain the maple thing? The CanCon.
The music artist, lyrics, and producer,
and P's for production. So MAPL, and you spell out what percentage of it is Canadian content.
Yeah,
the radio stations in Canada need to know that, and because the CRTC has regulations and
they do. And I mean, in this case, the music and the lyrics, the M and the L, that was split between myself, Troy, and Andrew. Mm-hmm. So if you dive into that, it works out to about 67% of that is Canadian-based content, which is great. But I mean, as long as you get 50% of the combined total, that is considered Canadian content. And obviously, I'm the artist. I'm 100% Canadian, so we get 100% in that category. And the production was all done here in Canada at Troy's studio. So that is, again, 100%. So we're well above what's needed to be considered CanCon. As a country artist, I know we had a station, it was a Sirius XM station, 171, and they just kind of changed their formatting right now to, they are going to be playing, I believe it's going to be 95% or more CanCon. Nice. So that's fantastic news for people wanting to break into that Sirius XM radio, because that's it's got a much larger reach than your local radio stations. I mean, it's getting to the point now where local radio stations can be streamed across the globe, but a lot of people subscribe to the Sirius XM channel. So if you already get that, that's kind of pretty cool to have something that's very heavily influenced by Canadian content.
Is it a country station?
I think it's a country format. I'm not 100% positive. This is a change that was just recently made. It used to be, its designation was country. I'm not 100% sure what it is now. We're still trying to figure out what it is. We think the formatting is similar to what it was, so probably country, but not sure. Yeah. Too new to know.
Who knows? I just want to talk a couple of things about that I really like about this song. I like, you were even talking about this before we played it, how you brought in the stress stuff, right? The kettle on stove, something's going to blow, but it's so, it's stated in such a universal way, right, that everyone can relate to that. And I'm glad it sort of does set the stage for why do you need the backdoor therapy?
Yes,
right. It's not just about cruising around for the heck of it. It's actually really helpful. And then after that first verse, it is 100% optimism and 100% good energy and 100% like just cruising and enjoying it. And this is all you need, right? And it's really that's. I think that's part of the reason you guys intuitively felt that it doesn't need to be a long song, because when it comes down to it, you're not really saying all that much. There's not a big elaborate story here. This is just about getting in your truck and hitting that road and enjoying the day.
And just remembering, taking yourself back to simpler times when things weren't so complicated, things weren't so stressful, and you have that outlet. So
turn the phone off, right?
Go to a place where the phone doesn't even work.
It doesn't even work.
Harder and harder to find.
That's really hard. Maybe in Manitoba it's a little bit easier.
Oh,
around here.
Surprisingly, Manitoba is unique in the sense that we still have, and I'm not. Let's say I'm not fully up to speed on what's going on with telecom systems across Canada, but Manitoba still has something called Manitoba Telephone Service.
Okay.
We still do have Bell, and we still do have Rogers and TELUS and all those other fine competitors, but we have something called Manitoba Telephone Systems. And it is surprising how many places in Manitoba you can find where there's not a single signal. I'm like, am I no longer in the province? Like, hello. It's like, this is kind of like, and you got cell phone boosters and all kinds of stuff. And even then you're lucky if the wind's blowing in the wrong direction, nothing. It's just like, what? To be honest, it's not like you would have much better success with any of the other phone companies in Manitoba, but there's a lot of dead spots, and I'm not sure. I think part of the reason the dead spots are there is because we were that little local provincial company that then got privatized and taken over, and now bought up by Bell.
Oh.
But they didn't have the big money incoming to create the infrastructure to have. But you know what? I've driven across Canada enough times that, driving through Saskatchewan and Alberta, you got just as many dead spots. It's
really?
Our country's too big.
Well, there's something to be said. I had the best sleep one time at a cottage where there was no cell service at all. And I don't really believe any of that 5G stuff, but it did make you kind of go, because both me and Heather both had the best sleeps of our lives.
Yeah.
So it's not like just one of us slept well. So I don't know. Maybe there's something to something. I don't know what it is.
Well, and my family has a little cottage up north here in Manitoba, on Lake Winnipeg, which is a pretty big lake, and it's actually on an island. Like, you have to take a little cable ferry to get across to it. And the only place on that entire island where you can even hope to get a cell signal is on the beach. So if you want to go check your text messages, you got to go to the beach. So
that ain't bad.
That ain't bad at all.
No, pretty good. Yeah. Do you mind? Of course, here in Southern Ontario, you got to drive for hours. Literally hours. You got to go to like Algonquin Provincial Park or something, go deep into the woods before you get off the highway.
Or fly up north, yeah.
Yeah, or the more north you get, obviously. But yeah, and that's one thing you didn't include in the song is cell phone. Something you didn't mention.
Well, and I think it was because at the time it was just it was really that thought about, and I smiled when we were listening to it just now, because we had to put in the, we got to get back there now, and this old truck knows how. And I think there's something to be said. People are like, well, there's something about that imagery of a truck that can take you places that, a car can't. So we're talking getting way off the beaten path here. We're talking about being able to drive through the creeks and up the hills and parking where it's nothing but you, your friends, or your partner, the sunshine, the wind, nature, and a heartbeat. That's all that's there. And there's something so beautiful and serene about that. I've always loved, like, since I moved to the city after I graduated, I love the convenience of the city. I love being able to say, I really need to go, whatever. I need to go grab some pasta sauce, and I can drive, midnight, go grab some. I didn't have that where I grew up. I mean, the store closed usually around 5 or 6 o'clock every day, and if you didn't get to it, and sometimes it was closed every Sunday. I mean, you had to plan ahead, but there wasn't this. I love the convenience of the city, but I don't like the hustle and bustle. I don't like the bumper to bumper. I don't like the people honking and the construction, and I like backroad therapy.
Yeah. And it's actually, in some ways it's better that way, because like this song could have been written 30, 40, 50 years ago, and it would still apply. There's nothing. There's no need to mention technology here at all. Like, the stove is as technological as we get. Like, it's the truck.
No, the only technology here was in the way it was written.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting about, being, we talk a lot about specificity, I think is the word, in songs. And there's a balance between being specific, I think, emotionally, and being specific in a way that can sort of date the song or kind of pigeonhole the song. Which is always interesting if you put technology into it. Like if you wrote a song about, a fax machine back in the 90s, I mean, it would just be
or a mixtape,
yeah, or a mixtape. I think kids are back into mixtapes now.
They're back into mixtapes, but I don't think beta video cassettes are coming back. So maybe
no, I think they know what the idea of a mixtape is now. But if it's not the same as it used to be, where your mixtape.
That's what they're calling playlists on Spotify. They're mixtapes.
Yes. But there was something special about, and for me, music's always been special. I mean, I still remember the days where you had to, if you wanted to make a mixtape, you had to sit there and wait for that song to come on the radio, and you're like, record. I missed the intro. It's like, no.
Oh yeah.
So
I know. Many times.
Times have changed. Convenience is great, but it takes. Sometimes I feel it because the music that we're creating is so easily accessible. I'm not going to say it loses some of its the thing that makes it special, but I think people are able to wear out songs a lot quicker now. They're like, I'm done hearing that. I've heard it 1,000 times, but
there was something fun about going to a record store and buying a record just because the cover looked cool. And sometimes the music was terrible, but I mean, it was still sort of cool. But there was, and then trying to find that, the record that you wanted, and it was an experience that just won't come again. And I guess that's fine. Yeah. There's other ones now.
CDs, tapes. I guess the same as with the blockbusters and movies. I mean, it was an experience to go there, pick up, hold those things in your hand, flip them over, read the credits. Like, oh wow, this person's in. When you go to a Spotify playlist now, and I'm not dissing Spotify if they're watching. I love you guys. Just don't. Well, take me off your playlist. But there was something special about seeing somebody's name on there and knowing that they played a part in that. And you'd open it up, you'd get your CD or you'd get your tape, and you'd open it up, and the lyrics are here, and there's some cool pictures here, and a little bio and a little story, and maybe some characters or whatever. That was an experience. Now to just be like, here we go. Yeah, there's a song. Oh, maybe there's a little 8-second video clip that repeats over and over again. But I think I spend more time now searching for specific music than I do enjoying it. And I feel that's a lost thing. I mean, it used to be like, wow, so much time and effort. And I still feel it does happen. I mean, I feel I put a lot of time and effort into creating things like album covers or, little videos that we want to put out promotionally, but they're easily digestible and accessible now. And it's consumed and discarded as quick as it doesn't have that special, like, wow, like I can open up this booklet and sing along with the song. Here's the lyrics. Now it's like, you need to bring up Soundhound, and there you go. It's like, there's the lyrics. Now you've got a bouncing ball like the old Disney cartoons, right?
You actually need to start releasing content as NFTs.
Yeah.
To make it valuable now.
Well, and I mean, I guess artists still do that, right? People do, if they have physical products like CDs or records, if they're making records now, they put something new and something special on there for the people who purchase those, something that's only accessible there.
One of the neatest things I ever saw was actually at the radio station we used to record this podcast at. There was a little indie band that released their CD, and it was just a paper sleeve, but they had like this abstract design on the paper sleeve that was just black lines on a white background. But what they did was they included 4 Crayola crayons with each CD.
Oh, that's cool.
In the notes, they asked people to color in this little design the way that they wanted, and then take a picture of it and post it on their social and tag them and all that sort of stuff. I thought that was the coolest thing. It's super cheap.
Super cool. That's
super cheap, but it just got fan engagement and all that sort of stuff. It's like, and the music wasn't bad either. It was pretty good too, actually.
and that's you have it right there. That's people love stuff like that, right? They get engaged. They get to post their own art. Like they become a part of the experience.
Yeah,
And
that's very true.
I'm used to doing that when I'm on stage, but I wish I was as creative to be able to do what you just said, and that's engaging fans, in multiple ways, and I think that really makes your personality shine too, because it shows that you care about people and you want to see what they can do. You don't have the answers to everything, and the answers, everybody's got their own stuff, so that's cool, really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jerry, do you have any words of wisdom to people who are just getting into the songwriting world, and maybe something that you've learned from working with all these different songwriters, like maybe a tip you can think of that maybe you wish you knew when you started off?
Well, I think the truth is there are people out there that want to help you. There's a lot of resources available that are free. Before you start going and paying thousands of dollars to go write with some guy down in Nashville, connect with the local people in your community, and the resources are there. I have been fortunate enough to write with some really great people, and these are people who realized at some point in time that maybe I wasn't at the caliber of writing that they were at, but they were happy to jump in and help. And it's really about making those connections and honing your craft. Nobody starts out an amazing songwriter. There's tips and tricks you can learn. And honestly, to get into this industry, you don't need to spend tens and tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's a lot of great we're lucky and fortunate to live in Canada here, where there's Factor, there's SoCan, there's so many great resources. And I mean, even to just sign up with SoCan and get involved with them, they're willing to connect you with other writers. They're willing to even, they got a writing house down in Nashville, and they got writing stuff going across Canada, and they're willing to help, you access grants to go learn about that kind of stuff. So before you worry about spending $100,000 getting into this industry, just look at what's in your backyard. I think that's the best advice that I wish people had told me. There's a lot of people and a lot of resources available to help Canadian emerging as well as established songwriters.
That's really good advice. That's really
very good advice.
Okay, that's afraid. That's the band, and that does all the time we have on Song Talk Radio. Special thanks to Jerry Sereda. Where can our listeners find more of your music, Jerry?
Go to jerrysereda.com, and all our socials are on there. All of our music can be listened to for free on our website, so you can always check it out. If you feel like throwing us a few bucks and buying a couple of the songs, we appreciate that too, but I'd just love you to pass on the information.
Awesome. And we'll definitely link to all that stuff from our show post on songtalk.ca, where you can also find this awesome lyric sheet that Jerry provided. Yes. So definitely check out the webpage. And we want to hear from you. So send in your comments, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at Songtalk Radio, or send us an email, feedback@songtalk.ca. Also, be sure to check out our YouTube channel for live performance videos and full episodes. Subscribe today to the Songtalk Radio podcast on your favorite podcast provider. And don't forget to sign up for our free newsletter at songtalk.ca. You can find links to all the products, books, and web services we mentioned on Song Talk Radio on our resources page, just like we were just talking about resources. And wherever you are in the world, please join us online via Zoom at our next monthly Song Talk Meetup. That's another resource for songwriters. It's free to join on meetup.com and free to attend the meetup. Bring a song and lyric sheet and get constructive feedback from other songwriters. Stop by songtalk.ca for the link. You can follow me at neilmodi.com. You can follow Phil
at philemery.ca.
And Jerry, what's your favorite social media channel?
My go-to right now is either my Facebook page, or I also get a lot of DMs on Instagram. And I'd also like to encourage people, feel free to reach out to me. If there's certain resources you need access to, such as you want to know where to find grants or you want to know where to find songwriters, please, I'm more than happy to help you, and my services are free. My advice is free.
Awesome. Definitely
Awesome.
we'll send people your way for sure. That's amazing and very generous. Thanks for listening, everybody, and be sure to stop by the website songtalk.ca to browse past shows and find out how you can be a guest. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and keep on writing.
Good night, everyone.
Long.